Well, after days of intense diplomatic manoeuvring, the United Nations has cleared the way for airstrikes to halt the Gaddafi regime's assault against rebel-held areas of Libya. The Security Council's decision to impose a no-fly zone came just hours after Colonel Gaddafi vowed to crush the rebel stronghold of Benghazi. 7:30's Chris Yorman is speaking to the ABC's Foreign Affairs editor, Peter Cave, in Tobruk.
Peter Cave, what was the reaction to news that the UN Security Council had given the go-ahead to a no-fly zone over Libya?
It was absolute jubilation. I'm in Tobruk, and as soon as the news filtered through, it started with a bit of AK-47 fire, then suddenly heavy machine guns cut in. We had rocket-propelled grenades exploding. We had anti-aircraft cannon, tracer bullets whipping up into the sky. Total pandemonium, and it just went on for hours.
Do locals believe that this will be enough to swing the conflict the rebels' way?
They say that it will. They say that they are more than a match for the government troops on the ground once you take the aircraft out of the equation. They say they do have heavy weapons that they can use, but they can't use them while they're under air attack. They say it would be useful to knock out the tanks and the heavy artillery, but not totally necessary. What they say is that the government just isn't capable of holding onto ground that it wins during the day at night, and they're quite capable with the resources they have of fighting them off. The one worry they have is that government troops will cut off their supply lines. At the moment there are tanks and troops on the road which leads from the town of Ajdabiya into Benghazi. And there are also troops and possibly tanks on a desert road that leads from Ajdabiya into Tobruk. If the government could sort of move in and surround the rebels, they cut off the supply lines that go through to the Egyptian border. That's where they're getting their supplies, they're getting their food, they're getting things like water, they're getting, more importantly, they're getting weapons and ammunition.
Well, Peter, there's been no sign of any movement from NATO at the moment. Are people anxious for this to begin?
Look, it's gone very quiet after a night of cacophony with gunfire going off everywhere. It's very, very quiet here. Everyone's waiting to see what will happen. They've been watching the Arabic television channels. They're told that the first strikes will probably come from the French and the British in their bases in Cyprus. They're just waiting to see what will happen.
Has there been any reaction that you're aware of from Colonel Gaddafi and his sons?
Well, yes, it has. Moments after the announcement, the Deputy Foreign Minister called a news conference in Tripoli. He came out and said that he was prepared to cooperate with a ceasefire. The government welcomed the intervention from the United Nations. They would cooperate in a ceasefire once the details were discussed. It's also interesting that Saif Islam, who's Gaddafi's son, started phoning some of the international news networks and saying much the same thing. He's been playing good cop to Colonel Gaddafi's bad cop over the last few days, with Colonel Gaddafi threatening all sorts of retribution, going house to house and extracting retribution on the rebels, and his son Saif Islam again talking about ceasefires, talking about providing humanitarian aid.
Peter Cave, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.